right. So, big news came out today, but I'm going to torture you guys, and that'll be the last article I go over. So, the first article I want to talk about today is Florida Attorney General harasses wine bar for violating a drag ban that judges already blocked. Which, I'm sorry, what? I get that you are a bigot, but isn't your job to know what laws are to be enforced and which ones are not? I mean, I don't know. I would think that the Attorney General would know that. Anyway, Florida officials harassed a Vero Beach restaurant for hosting an LGBTQ pride event, citing a drag law that the courts say can't be enforced. Attorney General James Uthmeier, who was appointed to his post by Governor Ron DeSantis, opened an investigation on the Kilted Mermaid, which the Associated Press says is owned by Vero Beach Vice Mayor Linda Moore, for hosting a pride tea dance with drag performers. The event happened at a wine bar, according to Florida Politics. In Florida, we don't sacrifice the innocence of children for the perversions of some demented adults, Uthmeier said in a statement. What children are in a wine bar? The Office of Statewide Prosecution opened an investigation into this sexualized performance to determine the extent of the content and exposure to children. Again, it's a wine bar. I remember, now granted this was 80s, we went to Florida and we are there with our parents because, again, this is the 80s, so we're still kids, me and my brother, and we're both teenagers. At this point, it's not like we're little kids. We're teenagers at this point. And we're at a establishment. I can't remember if it was within Disney or outside of Disney. But we were there because of Disney. Because, again, we were teenagers. This was during a teacher in service. So we took the opportunity to go to Disney in October when it's not hot as hell and you don't have to wait in a line that leads you back home. But anyway, my dad allowed my brother a sip of beer, just a sip of beer, which in Wisconsin, if you're with your parents, perfectly fine. Parents can give their kids, and again, we're teenagers. We're not little kids. We're teenagers. And maybe we were in junior high, not high school, but still, teenagers. And my dad gave my brother one sip of beer. He wasn't even drinking a beer. He had literally a sip. The waitress came to us and read my dad the riot act for it. So, if that happened in the 80s, there is no way in hell a child is getting into a wine bar. What the hell? All right. And seriously, we don't sacrifice the innocence of children? What innocence is being sacrificed here? Nobody's being sexually explicit in front of children. Again, this is in a wine bar. So, yeah, it's probably all adults. And not just adults, but 21 and over. So, what child's innocence is being sacrificed here? Even if they were just drag artists at an event where children are present. Those drag artists change their shtick or are specific to children. And demented adults? Are you seriously calling drag performers demented? Just because you don't understand why a man would want to dress up as a woman um and do drag. That's fine. I don't understand it either. I find it entertaining. So, a lot of people find it entertaining. And again, some drag artists like to be raunchy and do burlesque. And then there are some drag artists who love children and want to do things like drag queen story hour. Again, these are, even if they do both, they don't do the burlesque in front of children because they are not idiots. They know that this is not entertainment appropriate for children. It's like, I know that my channel isn't appropriate for children, so there is a setting that asks on YouTube, is your channel appropriate for children? And the answer is no. I know that my channel isn't appropriate for children. Neither this channel nor my other channel is appropriate for children. If for no other reason, I just don't have it in me to censor myself when it comes to my language. And I've gotten better at not swearing, but still, I'm not going to assume that I'm not going to swear. So to be on the safe side, I put my channel as not safe for children. So drag queens are the same. Actually, drag artists are the same because drag kings exist. Drag artists know what their entertainment is geared towards. If they're geared towards adults, okay. If they're geared towards children, okay. They know this. It's not like they are like, let's see who I can, trick into watching this. No, that's not how this works. Anyway, back to the article. Uthmeier said in a statement, the Office of Statewide Prosecution opened an investigation into this sexualized performance to determine the extent of the content and exposure to children. Again, there will be no exposure to children because it's a wine bar. There will not be children in a wine bar. And if you think that there are children in a wine bar, then you're the problem because what the hell? Moore told a local NBC affiliate she stood by the event and said she will host it again next year. She stressed there was no age-inappropriate entertainment at the show during the period when youths were attending. Okay, so I was wrong. There were children at a wine bar. But, again, it was age-appropriate. At our Pride event every year in my small town, there are two different types of events. There is the family-friendly event during the day, and then there is the drag show in the evening. And those drag shows are explicitly stated to be 18 and over. You have to be an adult to get to those events. Are there drag events at the family-friendly one? Yes. But because they're family-friendly, the drag entertainment is just that, family-friendly. I don't know why this is so hard for people to understand. And many times people will lose their shit that children are being exposed to risque entertainment because drag shows are usually that. But drag entertainers are not stupid. They know what's appropriate for children and they know what's appropriate for adults. And never the two shall meet. So, I was wrong. There were children, but it was an age-appropriate event. So she resisted public calls for his resignation over the issue. Because again, why? If while children were present, there was nothing X-rated, I'm gonna sneeze. If there was nothing inappropriate when children were present, again, why should she resign? Unless, Florida is populated with a bunch of pearl clutchers that, oh my God, there are drag shows in front of children, completely missing the part about there are age-appropriate drag shows. I just don't understand why, because I'm pretty sure that most people are not even aware that drag shows are risque. I would think that they would be more aware of things like RuPaul's Drag Race, which I'm not entirely sure, but I'm pretty sure is not specific as adult entertainment. But I could be wrong. But, so, there's different types of entertainment by drag artists. So, I don't know where people are getting the idea that there's only one way to do drag. Don't understand that at all. Gay pride is all ages to a certain point in the evening. I've stated this again and again and again, Moore said. Perhaps it shouldn't have said all ages on the flyer. Again, it depends on the entertainment. If there is a portion of entertainment where that's geared towards children, then it should be fine. If it says all ages for the entire event, and you have adult entertainment, I can see where there could be a problem. But again, it depends on the details. Uthmeier's office subpoenaed surveillance footage along with logs, notes, or documents identifying camera locations, retention policies, or personnel responsible for maintaining said recordings. He also wanted a list of all employees working at the business on June 28th when the event was held. He also wanted documents that identified guests and anyone who was performing, and demanding everything be produced for his office by August 8th at 9 a.m. The subpoena cited Florida statute allowing the office to demand the production of documents for an investigation, but did not mention any law the business may have violated. But the press release alleged there was evidence the show was advertised as all ages welcome and that the event featured adult sexualized performers in front of children in violation of Florida law. That appears to rely on an anti-drag law signed by DeSantis in 2023. But after Orlando restaurant Hamburger Mary's, which hosted a regular drag queen story hour, sued over the law, a federal judge in June 2023 said the statute could not be enforced. In May, the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that ruling. This isn't the first time Uthmeier, who is up for election to a 4-year term next year, has appeared to ignore the court saying a law cannot be enforced. He was held in contempt of court last month, as reported by the Florida Phoenix. That was after Uthmeier sent a letter to Florida law enforcement agencies saying he could not stop them from enforcing a new anti-immigration law, even though a judge blocked the statute. The 11th Circuit Court of Appeals upheld that lower court ruling as well. So, now I'm confused because even what did they say, vice governor, said that it shouldn't have said all ages on the flyer. So, but then later on in the article, it made it sound like it didn't. So I don't know now what it said on the flyer. Like I said, maybe, parts of it were for children and parts of it were not. Again, when we had our gay pride event, we had, 3 separate events. We had the family friendly event, we had the after dark event, and then we had the after dark event. So, and it was clearly marked what was for children, what was not. And it's not like they ran together, they weren't at the same venue. So I'm not sure about the details of this. But I'm pretty sure that it was framed in such a way that the drag that the children were allowed to witness was not the drag for adults only. Now, again, I don't know exactly what was said on the flyer, what was done, so I could be wrong. But the fact remains that, pride allows for children. And the events that children are exposed to are family friendly, unless they sneak in where they're not supposed to, which, teenagers are notorious for that. So, again, that's not the organizer's fault if that happens. So, anyway, obviously they should try to stop it, but all right, so let's move on to immigration. And this particular article, outrage after border agent subject detained gay Vermont superintendent to hours of psychological terror. I was praising the Advocate for not pointing out that someone is gay when it doesn't actually matter. Maybe in the grand scheme of things, it's going to turn out that this guy being gay might have something to do with what happened to him. But I read some of the article and I don't think so. All right. A gay Vermont school superintendent says he was detained, separated from his husband, and subjected to hours of abusive questioning in Texas by U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers while returning from a trip to Nicaragua this week in an incident his local school board condemned as inhumane, unjust, and deeply disturbing. Vilmar Chavarria, a U.S. citizen and superintendent of Winooski School District, says he was held for more than 5 hours at Houston's George Bush Intercontinental Airport on Monday. Chavarria and his husband, Essex High School teacher Cyrus Dudgeon, were returning from visiting family in Nicaragua when they were stopped during global entry processing. Only Chavarria was detained, which is very peculiar. Which is why I mentioned, why point out he's gay? Because then both the couple would have been detained. Obviously, the fact that he's gay had nothing to do with it. But we don't know why the husband wasn't detained. 7 Days Vermont reports that in a message to district leaders, Chavarria said officers seized his phone and laptop, denied him access to counsel, and interrogated him in 4 separate rooms. CBP agents allegedly cast doubt on his citizenship, questioned the legitimacy of his 15-year relationship, and challenged his employment status. His husband was not detained. Okay. So much to unpack here. All right. Again, we don't know why he was detained and the husband was not, because apparently they both have family in Nicaragua. Or maybe just one of them does and the other one is just, totally part of the family. That could be too. But even if he wasn't a U.S. citizen, what the hell? Seizing his phone and laptop, denying him access to counsel, that's the big one. Hello, due process is still a fucking thing in this country. I mean, even if you're one of those assholes who think that due process is only for American citizens, these guys didn't even believe that he was a citizen. So that's why we need due process for everybody, not just citizens. Because then schmucks cannot claim, oh, I do not have to worry about due process with you because I don't believe you're a citizen. So, and why did they cast doubt on his citizenship? It reminds me of this guy who was arrested and had a real ID, and they decided it was fake. Now, I understand ICE is under pressure by Stephen Miller to fulfill a quota, but, I think it's the head of ICE who claimed that agents need to wear masks because otherwise they and their families will receive death threats. This is why you're receiving death threats. Because you're being inhumane, you're treating people like shit. Okay, you want to meet your quota. I get that. You can do that without treating people like they're not human. There's a start. Let's see. They also questioned the legitimacy of his 15-year relationship. Why? Why would they do that? Did they think that he snuck in and he found some random guy and's like, would you pretend to be my husband? I don't think there's a picture of either one of these guys. No, there isn't a picture. So I wonder if Chavaria is brown and his husband is white. Now, I know that they've been dicks to Canadians as well, so I can't assume that just because someone is white that they're going to get off scot-free. But, and when I say Canadians, I mean white Canadians. So it's possible that, that his husband is also not white. But this doesn't look good. And challenged his employment status. That's just, what the hell, guys? Again, I get you need to make a quota, but, deciding to go full on racist, probably not a good look. I mean, a great look for Stephen Miller because he's fucking racist, but not a good look for PR. Otherwise. They falsely stated that I, a U.S. citizen, have no constitutional rights at a point of entry, and officers became increasingly agitated as I continued to assert my rights regardless, Chavaria wrote. He described the experience as nothing short of surreal and the definition of psychological terror. Of course they got agitated because they don't like it when people know their rights. That's why Republicans lost their shit when AOC would have workshops to teach immigrants their rights. Which they interpreted as how to avoid ICE. Well, if If you want to admit that ICE is doing unconstitutional shit and illegal shit, then fine. But that doesn't mean AOC is doing a bad thing by teaching people their rights. So, yeah, that's not a AOC or immigrants problem. That's the problem of the racists who, want people to be stupid so they can just do whatever the hell they want. All right. In an interview with Vermont CBS affiliate WCAX, Chavaria said CBP agents attempted to access his school-issued computer, which contained sensitive student data. Well, yeah, he's a freaking superintendent. Of course it has sensitive data. He refused to provide his passwords without consulting the district's legal counsel, which is perfectly reasonable. I continue to ask for a lawyer, at least to ask the district lawyer, to give me the go-ahead to provide that information, and they continue to refuse, he told the station. Chavaria said he was also asked about the sincerity of his marriage and whether he was truly a superintendent. Google is a thing. Fucking Google it. Jesus Christ. He said he believes his detention was politically motivated. I've been very vocal and a big advocate for the protection of vulnerable communities in the state of Vermont and the nation, he told WCAX. I'm in a very critical and visible position, and I'm not surprised when things like this happen. He warned that it's going to get worse if people don't mobilize quickly. Chavaria, who was born in a Honduran refugee camp and grew up in Nicaragua, came to the U.S. as a student and became a citizen in 2018. He holds 2 master's degrees, including one from Harvard University. He has led the Vermont School District since 2023. So that explains why he was detained and the husband was not. Because obviously the husband is not politically active, or at least not politically active in such a way that ICE would come down on him. So the Winooski School Board released a statement Tuesday strongly The Winooski School Board released a statement Tuesday standing firmly behind Chavaria and calling on elected officials to investigate. Despite being a United States citizen, Superintendent Chavaria was separated from his husband and treated in a manner that is deeply disturbing and unacceptable, the board wrote. Superintendent Chavaria is an exemplary leader and a beloved member of the Winooski School District community. His commitment to our students, families, and staff is unwavering. All right. While we are aware that such detentions are increasingly becoming more common across the country, we must be clear. This is not normal, it is wrong, it is inhumane, it is unjust, the statement continued. We've heard, think about it. He has a platform. He was able to get this out. There's so many people who aren't afforded that. And there are things that you learn after the fact about people who've been disappeared, like what happened to Kilmar Abrego Garcia or what happened to Andres. You hear how they were tortured at CCAT, which of course was the reason why the Trump administration sent them there. Which, as an aside, Andres was part of that prisoner swap with Venezuela, the U.S., and El Salvador. So Andres is out of El Salvador. Unfortunately, he's now in Venezuela. And he left there because he was being persecuted. So, yeah, that's great. But anyway, back to this article. 7 Days Vermont, which first reported the story, noted that Chavaria had never experienced this kind of treatment before, not while traveling on a student visa, nor as a green card holder, nor as a naturalized citizen. You think it's less likely to happen when you're a full U.S. citizen, he said. That's why I was so shaken by the whole thing. Have you not been paying attention to New York? Maybe this happened before Mamdani got the Democratic nomination. Trump is threatening New York City now. He's threatening to deport Mamdani, who also became a citizen in 2018. On Tuesday morning, just before boarding a flight home to Vermont, Chavaria received an email notice from CBP informing him that his previously approved global entry status had been revoked without justification. Representative Becca Balint, from the first out LGBTQ member of Congress from Vermont, was not immediately available for an interview, but a spokesperson directed the advocate to a speech she delivered on the House floor Tuesday evening. I take to the floor today because I'm angry, and so are Vermonters, Balint said. We are furious because of what happened yesterday to a Vermonter, a U.S. citizen, as he attempted to return home. Wilmer Chavaria is a community leader. He is a school superintendent in my state. He was held and interrogated for hours by CBP agents and given no reason for his detainment. Balint added, Wilmer called the experience psychological terror. Again, we are talking about a U.S. citizen here. So when we say this can happen to any of us, this is what we're talking about. This kind of violation of our constitutional rights is how leaders use terror to intimidate us into silence. Now, do I like it that she keeps emphasizing he's a U.S. citizen as if, everybody else can have this done to him? I don't believe that that's what she meant, but I'm pretty sure that this is sort of like when there are anti-trans voices that suggest that trans women do not belong in women's bathrooms. Well, how the fuck are you going to enforce it, genius? And now you see how cis people are being harmed because of this anti-trans nonsense. So it's the same thing here. Let's tell the U.S. citizens that this is what's happening. And maybe then they'll give a shit about and understand that this is why we can't have this happen to undocumented people, because then people will think, you'll see a brown person and think it's perfectly reasonable to detain them. Maybe it's because of his advocacy online, or it could be that he just happens to be brown and speaks with English with an accent. And, because racial profiling is a thing. Kristi Noem has pointed out that there's nothing wrong with racial profiling. She doesn't see that as a problem. And so, yeah, this is what happens when you are complacent that the undocumented get treated a certain way, because it will inevitably turn into something like this. When community leaders, school superintendents are being detained because of the color of their skin and the sound of their last name, she continued, we need to hold on to our collective outrage. We do not need to accept this. This is not what Americans want. Are you sure about that? Because we've learned this past election that this country is racist as hell. So, in response to the advocate's request for comment, a CBP spokesperson did not address Chavaria's case directly, but said that every traveler entering the United States is subject to inspection, which CBP considers essential to safeguarding national security. Okay, nobody is saying that you can't inspect certain people, but you treat them like a criminal. You deny them due process. No, that's not just you conducting an investigation. That's your racist ass trying to justify treating people who happen to not be white as less than. It's just so gross. CBP officers treat all travelers with integrity, respect, professionalism, and according to law, the agency said. The spokesperson added that searches of electronic devices are rare, highly regulated, and have been used in identifying and combating serious crimes, and that travelers are required to present electronic devices in a condition that allows examination. While U.S. citizens will not be denied entry for refusing to unlock their devices, their property may be detained or excluded, and processing times may be increased. That doesn't say shit about denying a lawyer. CBP emphasized that passcodes are destroyed once no longer needed and may not be used to access remotely stored information. Okay, that's all well and good, but all this guy wanted to know was, can I give these people access because they're sensitive information? Which is a reasonable question. And CBP treated it like he was asking the moon or something. It's just, ew. All right. So that is the end of that article. And now this next article isn't really about trans people, but it delves into the harm that these trans investigators do to cis people. And the idea that because we have a First Amendment, that everyone is free to say whatever the fuck they want without consequence. So there's two issues here. Breaking. French President Macron sues Candace Owens for defamation over claims his wife is transgender. Now, the only thing I can see on Brigitte Macron that would lead anyone to even remotely consider her trans is simply the fact that I don't particularly consider her to be a beautiful woman. Now, I have seen her look good on occasion, but most of the time she looks dumpy. And, she's a lot older than him. She's old enough to be his mother. She's actually the same age as, I think, Joe Biden or Jill Biden, one of the two. But she's their age. So she's a generation older. So, of course, she's not going to look young and, supermodel hot. She's not going to look that. That's just the way it is. But at the same time, this is why we need to not be attacking trans people. Because now people are looking for any little sign that someone is trans. Seriously, Candace Owens always wear pantsuits. So does that mean she's trans? No, it does not. So what the heck? Why are we policing what people look like and, being so sure that someone is trans? When, not all women look a certain way. Not all men look a certain way. Just leave it alone. French President Emmanuel Macron and First Lady Brigitte Macron have filed a defamation lawsuit in Delaware against right-wing commentator Candace Owens, alleging that she orchestrated a campaign of global humiliation by falsely claiming Brigitte, 72, okay, so she's a bit younger, is a transgender woman, and that the French president, 47, is part of a CIA mind control experiment. What? Are these people wearing their tinfoil hats too tight? What the fuck? I'm not sure what's more egregious. Claiming that Brigitte Macron is trans? Or that Emmanuel Macron is part of a CIA mind control experiment? Oh wow, I didn't think I needed my tinfoil hat for this. I mean, any more than the trans thing. The 218-page complaint filed Wednesday in Delaware Superior Court accuses Owens of using her social media platforms and podcasts to spread knowingly false transphobic conspiracy theories for profit. The Macrons are seeking compensatory punitive damages and have requested a jury trial, according to Reuters. The lawsuit centers on Owens' 8-part YouTube series, Becoming Brigitte, which has garnered more than 2.3 million views and includes repeated assertions that Brigitte Macron was assigned male at birth under the name Jean-Michel Trogneau, her actual brother's name. Seriously, what the hell? Owens also claimed that Macrons are blood relatives and described Emmanuel Macron as a result of a CIA human experimentation program, a reference to the debunked MK Ultra project, according to the Financial Times. What? I'm sorry. So we're talking incest, CIA, and Brigitte's brother is actually her. Oh my god, and there are people who believe this. No wonder Trump got elected. What the fuck are we doing? Every time the Macrons leave their home, they do so knowing that countless people have heard and many believe these vile fabrications, lawsuit states. The complaint describes Owens' conduct as invasive, dehumanizing, and deeply unjust. The lawsuit notes that Owens ignored multiple cease and desist letters and continued amplifying the claims. Owens has dissected their appearance, their marriage, their friends, their family, and their personal history, twisting it all into a grotesque narrative designed to inflame and degrade, the Macrons wrote in their filing. Faced with this relentless and unjustified smear campaign, the Macrons are left with no choice but to seek relief through this court to set the record straight, prevent further harm, and hold defendants accountable for their conduct, the lawsuit states. Attorney Thomas Clare, representing the couple, told Financial Times that they are prepared to travel to Delaware to testify. They believe it's important to stand up for themselves, he said. Owens has had multiple opportunities to do the right thing, and in response, she has only mocked them. Now, for those of you who are not familiar with Candace Owens, she's one of those who claims to be a trad wife, a traditional wife. This idea that she cooks, she cleans, women should do this, women should do that, men shouldn't wear dresses. Very specific gender roles, which at the same time she wears pantsuits, which nothing wrong with that. But if you're going to whine about strict gender roles, maybe you should wear a dress on occasion. Because once upon a time, women weren't allowed to wear trousers. That was a major no-no. So, why aren't you wearing dresses, Candace? Why are you always wearing pants? So, there is that. Because Ben Shapiro's sister, whose name I'm blanking on, she actually has a YouTube channel discussing, how to be a traditional wife. But you know what she also does? She wears dresses. So at least not only is that her brand, but she actually walks the walk. She actually wears dresses. She doesn't wear pants. So, yeah. At least she's consistent, unlike Candace Owens. A spokesperson for Owens, who has a long history of spreading misinformation about transgender people and LGBTQ plus issues, told the publication she would respond on her podcast Wednesday. Of course she is. It is not President Macron's first legal battle over false transphobic claims. In September, a French court awarded her nearly $9,000 in damages after conspiracy theorists falsely claimed she was her brother and had transitioned. And now Candace is doing the same fucking thing. Although she initially won in court, the decision was later overturned on appeal. All right. Now Candace Owens does also, whine about the First Amendment. It's not mentioned in this article, but she does later mention that, they can't touch her because, I don't know how things are done in France, but in the US there is the First Amendment. Which is all well and good, but the First Amendment, libel laws are a thing in this country. There is no such thing as libel laws not existing. Now, they're obviously not as strict as, say, in the UK, but we have libel laws. So you can't just say whatever the fuck you want about anybody, especially a famous person. If you're a famous person saying shit about another famous person that's obviously false, yeah, you can be sued for libel. That is very, very much a thing. It's amazing to me how the right wing seems to think that the First Amendment means I can say whatever the fuck I want and you can't stop me, because if you say anything back to me, you're violating my First Amendment rights. And oh, by the way, you don't have the same rights as I do, so you cannot say whatever the fuck you want. It is just maddening how people act like this. It's just, so bizarre. Okay. Actually, a fun fact about transvestigators. Now, I'm pretty sure this particular transvestigator is just taking the piss out of the transvestigator movement. Or maybe this person is a complete and utter dumbass. Because they managed to transvestigate J.K. Rowling, who, for those in the know that she is a serious TERF. She hates trans women with a fiery passion, which she uses as a reason that she was assaulted years ago. So being sexually assaulted by a man, being raped by a man years ago, is the reason why she hates trans women who aren't men and aren't violent men. But anyway, a transvestigator decided to look at her and decide that she is in fact trans, which is all sorts of hilarious, but at the same time it shows just how stupid the transvestigator movement is, because at that point you can call anybody trans. You can always find a reason why someone is trans. But anyway, so to the what some people on my channel might consider the main event, the reason why I would suspect most of you are here. Trump, not drag queens, appears in Epstein files, and DOJ told him months ago, the Wall Street Journal reports. President Donald Trump's name appears multiple times in documents reviewed by the Department of Justice during its internal investigations into Jeffrey Epstein, according to a Wall Street Journal report published Wednesday afternoon. Senior administration officials said Attorney General Pam Bondi and Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche informed the president of this during a private White House meeting in May. Yet Trump has publicly claimed otherwise. On July 15th, during a gaggle with reporters at the White House, an ABC News journalist asked him directly, specifically, did Bondi tell you at all that your name appeared in the files? No, she's given us just a very quick briefing, Trump said, adding that Bondi had really done a very good job handling the Epstein situation. The Wall Street Journal report confirmed that Trump's name was among many found in the DOJ's Epstein records, which officials characterized as containing hearsay and unverified claims about individuals who had associated with Epstein before his 2006 state-level conviction. Of course they do, because Trump's in it. The Justice Department concluded the material did not contain sufficient grounds for prosecution and opted to withhold it, citing both the presence of child sexual abuse material and the need to protect victims' identities. Right, because no one's ever redacted a file in their lives. There is that. And if they can't find sufficient grounds for prosecution, then why was Jeffrey Epstein on trial? And why is Ghislaine Maxwell serving a 20-year sentence? What the hell? But yet we can't prosecute anyone because there's no sufficient grounds. But we need to protect victims. And there's sexual abuse material. If there's sexual abuse material, how do you not have sufficient grounds for prosecution here? Now, the most generous interpretation of this is that Trump just appears because he was friends with Epstein. But the fact that Trump went such scorched earth, coming up with all these excuses as to why we shouldn't pay attention to the Epstein files, he projects guilt. Now, granted, he has shown in his other behavior, like, walking in on the Teen Miss USA pageant while the contestants were in various states of undress, walking in their dressing room. You know that this man is a pedo. He's totally a pedophile. You don't need to see his name in the Epstein files to know that. But yeah, I want to see the names. I want to see what other names are in the files. Because, people have mentioned, well, Bill Clinton is probably in the files. Okay, if he is, I want to know. Because unlike Republicans who are circling the wagons, well, maybe less so now, but for most part, circle the wagons when it comes to their savior, Trump, being accused of anything. Most people on the Democratic side are like, I want to know if the person I've been looking up to is a pedophile. So I can, not look up to him anymore. All right. Bondi and Blanche told the Journal, as part of our routine briefing, we made the president aware of the findings. They said Trump agreed with the DOJ's decision to withhold further disclosures. And that's when everything went south. Because Trump is his own worst enemy, and he made such a big deal of, look over here, there's nothing to see in the Epstein files, that even if, like I said, even if it was completely innocent why he's in the files, he certainly is acting like it's not innocent. But those of us who've been paying nominal attention and actually pay attention and admit that he did some messed up things, this doesn't come as any surprise. And the fact that he would have gone to Epstein Island and had sex with a minor, yeah, that doesn't. He's even said on Howard Stern, when asked for an age limit, he goes, well, obviously I have an age limit, but it's not like I'm going to get caught with a 12-year-old. Okay, there's a huge difference between 12 and age of consent. So, not a good look. Also on Wednesday, a federal judge in Florida denied the Trump administration's effort to unseal transcripts from two grand juries convened in 2005 and 2007 as part of Epstein's early federal investigation. The Justice Department had petitioned the court just days earlier on July 17th to make the records public, arguing that the documents are of significant historical interest and enduring public importance, given the government's past handling of the Epstein case. In that filing, the DOJ wrote that the release of the requested materials will shed important light on the role of federal prosecutors and the grand jury system in an extraordinary case involving an infamous figure alleged to have committed grave and repeated crimes. They further argued that many of the usual reasons for grand jury secrecy no longer apply, especially given Epstein's 2019 death and the public's long-standing scrutiny of the case. But U.S. District Judge Robin Rosenberg ruled that the court lacked authority under 11th Circuit precedent to grant the petition. 11th Circuit law does not permit this court to grant the government's request. The court's hands are tied. A point the government concedes, she wrote in a 12-page decision. Rosenberg also denied the DOJ's request to transfer the case to the Southern District of New York, where Second Circuit precedent may allow greater flexibility. The Justice Department has also said it is seeking a meeting with Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's longtime associate who was convicted in 2021 of child sex trafficking and is currently serving a 20-year sentence. The administration's reversal has enraged many of Trump's supporters, who for years believed the Epstein files would expose Democrats and global elites. Donald Trump is hiding something, said Representative Robert Garcia, a California Democrat and the gay ranking member of the House Oversight Committee. Again, what does his being gay have to do with anything? Ugh. In a July 17th interview with CNN's Caitlin Collins, Garcia said he spent his entire campaign talking about releasing the Epstein files. Instead, he's betrayed his base and his promises. Before I continue, this might be the thing that might galvanize both Republicans and Democrats. Actually, it's so galvanizing that the House Speaker, Mike Johnson, has sent the House home for vacation, for summer vacation, because he doesn't want to vote on the Epstein files to release them, because he knows that there are plenty of Republicans who would actually vote for that. Because there's a lot that them and the mega base are willing to put up with. Pedophilia? No. So, But there was something else I wanted to mention about the DOJ. This article pretty much said what I thought. What is annoying with a lot of MAGA, not all MAGA, but a lot of MAGA, is that this idea that why would Trump do this? Who got to Trump? I mean, they're so close to getting the truth. They're so close to getting it that Trump is in the files. Now, hopefully, they'll put 2 and 2 together and realize that this is not a good man. I mean, he might be racist like you. He might be an all-around bigot like you. But he's also a pedophile. Maybe this will finally wake everyone up to realize that this is not a good man. They should never have voted him into a position of power. This is here not because Democrats campaigned on it, not because we were talking about the Epstein files or what we thought were conspiracy theories, Garcia continued, but because Donald Trump made it central to his win. Which is bizarre because there was no way he didn't already have a inkling that he was in the files. There was no way that Pam Bondi had to tell him that his name is specifically in the files. He must have had some sort of a inkling that he was in there before. So why campaign on releasing the Epstein files when you know it's going to screw you over? I mean, Fox News even did an interview, which, considering Trump had no problem suing CBS for editing because, apparently Republicans have just learned that editing is a thing. But Fox News edited Trump's answer when asked about the Epstein files to make it sound like, oh yeah, I'm totally for releasing the Epstein files. He then actually walked that back saying, well, maybe not the Epstein files because, we don't want to wrongly accuse innocent people who just happen to have names in the files. So he already knew he was in the freaking files. He did not need Pam Bondi to tell him. Actually, some people have been joking that Kamala Harris should sue Fox News for the editing of that answer simply because, Trump did it to her, so let's do it to Trump. Also on July 17th, Republican Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene posted on X, formerly Twitter, that if Trump was guilty of anything regarding Jeffrey Epstein, Democrats would have used it against him the past 4 years. Unless we didn't know that he was in the file. What the fuck? She followed the statement with anti-LGBTQ plus attacks, accusing Democrats of supporting drag queen storytime. As if that's a problem? Naked men dancing in front of children at pride parades. Okay. Have you been to Mardi Gras? Seriously, have you heard of Mardi Gras? And mentally ill men in girls' and women's bathrooms. No, these are not mentally ill men. These are trans women using the correct bathroom. Just because you are freaked out that Sarah McBride was born male does not change the fact that she is now 100% a woman. And she is not going to attack you. Trust me, she is not into you because she's into men. She is a straight woman. I don't know where these people get the idea. Number one, even if these were mentally ill men, gay men exist. So not all men who, even if trans women are mentally ill men, not all of them are into women. gay men exist. And then there's the fact that because they're actually women, they are straight. So again, not into you. Why is this so hard to understand? I keep getting, oh, but what about the comfort of cis women? What about the comfort of trans women? I mean, I've mentioned before, when I was in school, I was never comfortable using a changing room, using the girls' locker room. Before gym class, after gym class, never felt comfortable. I had been doing that since I was a kid. Never felt comfortable doing it. Never, ever, ever. By that logic, I should have requested a private changing room because I'm not comfortable. This isn't about comfort. A lot of women, and I'm sure a lot of men, are not comfortable in a public changing room. That does not mean that they should allow themselves to have private changing rooms for those who are not comfortable. No, that's not how any of this works. We are all put in a situation at times when we're not comfortable. As long as nobody does anything, what's the problem? I mean, there's a good chance that in a women's locker room, you're sharing it with a lesbian. They're attracted to women. And you don't hear about them attacking. Why? Because they know better. They're not assholes. So why are we going after trans women and the comfort of cis women? Because it's the assumption that because this person either still has a penis because they either can't or just haven't had the bottom surgery yet, that means that they are interested in you. And the answer is no. No, they are not. Because again, most people are straight. So trans women, most of them are straight. So again, not interested in women. And I just don't understand why this is so hard for people. You've probably shared a changing room or a bathroom with a trans woman and never knew, because they're not easy to spot. Regardless of what trans investigators want to tell you, and they, and they just happen to pass. So and they're in there, they do their business, they leave. Because they're not there to creep on women. They are there to use the bathroom. Or in the case of a changing room, change their clothes and leave. They are not there to harass anyone. They are not there to creep on anyone. It's not that hard. All right. The Journal previously reported that Trump once sent Epstein a lewd 2003 birthday letter. The note included a typewritten message surrounded by a crude drawing of a naked woman, with Trump's signature positioned beneath her waist. Trump has denied authoring the note and filed a defamation lawsuit against the Journal and its parent company, Dow Jones. All right, so that's the end of that article. And, oh, by the way, the owner of the Wall Street Journal, Rupert Murdoch, who also owns Fox News. So, yes, that is a get out the popcorn time. So, not only was that they mentioned that her signature was positioned beneath her waist, it basically functioned as pubic hair. And Donald Trump, even though he denied that he draws pictures, has actually sold his pictures at auction. So, again, denying things that people can easily check out. It's just so pitiful how much he has to lie. If he just acted like a decent human being, he wouldn't have to lie so much. But this might be the scandal that takes him down. This might be the straw that broke the camel's back, and there'll be enough Republicans who are like, you know what, we totally stand by Trump, but we just cannot condone pedophilia. This might be the very thing that brings him down. He might finally get impeached. Granted, we'll end up with President J.D. Vance, but for the most part, at least he's sane. So maybe things would improve. Maybe not, because he seems to have drunk Trump's Kool-Aid. So maybe not completely. But like with the Epstein thing, he's pretty much, crickets. You don't hear from him. Granted, he's the vice president, so you don't hear from the vice president that much anyway. However, he seems to be, staying out of the fray. So this could be the scandal that elevates J.D. Vance to the presidency. I mean, the Republicans have let me down before, so it's entirely possible that we won't get that, but you never know. It's entirely possible that this will be the thing that screws him over. That even his threat of primarying Republicans who vote against him won't be enough, because nobody will respect anyone who's endorsed by a pedophile. So that might be the one saving grace. Anyway, that is the end of that article. So I believe I've covered everything I wanted to in this video. And with that, I will see you guys in the next one.